Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from the South Downs, 45 miles south of London. Lockdown is happening. Lockdown isn't happening. Who knows what's happening? But at least we know where we are with Blockspeak. It's BS. That's Block Speak, not the other words. We've had some amazing guests on recently from across the board in crypto. But today we have our first shark. We've had whales. Now we have a shark. Maybe we'll have a dolphin next week, or it's all a bit fishy, but whatever. So please be introduced to Vinny Lingham. We managed to get his surname right in the rehearsals. I said Lingham, so obviously I haven't made a mistake yet. So Vinny Lingham is the CEO, co-founder of Civic. So welcome to Blockspeak, Vinny. Where are you today?
I'm in San Diego.
Are you in San Diego? I
Yeah,
thought are you South African? Are you based there? Or?
I'm South African. I've been living in the Bay Area for about 12 years. Well,
Okay.
10 years in the Bay Area and about 2 years in San Diego. So,
Was there a reasoning for going to San Diego?
I got to the point where the Bay Area was just overcrowded. It's just,
Yeah.
if anyone who's been there or lived there, realize there's just no space for people to live easily. Like you have to really move far out from San Francisco. And eventually I was living down in like the South Bay area. And it took me 2 hours to get to San Francisco on a good day. 1:45 to 2:15 is kind of the range.
Yeah,
And I was like, well, I can live in San Diego and fly in within an hour. So why would I go and live in like the Bay Area, deep South? And, San Diego is just a much more open spaced area. It's more, better energy flowing, for me anyway.
oh, absolutely. 1994, I went around the world and I ended up working at the San Diego Yacht Club
Oh,
outside the Intercontinental Hotel. So we used to go across the bay by
yeah.
yacht, just about every day. It was amazing. I love it. I love it there.
Yeah, San Diego's great. Southern California and Northern California are very different. The population density in San Diego versus San Francisco, you can't really compare it. And you get more value for money as well. So when it comes to property, the Bay Area is notoriously expensive when it comes to like living space and costs and the cost for people living there. And I just didn't want to be part of that sort of treadmill, right? So you kind of have to be on a treadmill in the Bay Area, and I think
Oh, absolutely. I went to the cinema for the first time in the UK on Sunday, and I watched the most ridiculous film to watch. Bearing in mind recent events, I watched Unhinged, the road rage movie with Russell Crowe.
oh,
Uh,
I've seen that. That's good.
I thought it was nuts, man,
Uh,
but he was like a bear, right?
yeah,
You know,
there
so I
you go.
understand why you got away from that type of from that type of.
It's not that it's bad. It's just not for everyone. Like some
No,
people, I grew up in East London, South Africa, which is a nice coastal town
absolutely.
in Africa. It's like very good beaches, etc. And then I lived in Johannesburg for a while, moved to Cape Town for a while, and then obviously the Bay Area. And I got just to realize that I just like living near the beach. It's just a nice
Yeah,
thing,
absolutely.
nice at the beach to look at the ocean, have the air. Um, and obviously, San Francisco got a bit of that, but it's different, right? You don't have the same type of
Do you
weather.
ever, I mean, I've been out for the night in Johannesburg as a white guy, and you kind of need an escort everywhere you go. And I didn't even think that was going to be true, but it was. You
Yeah.
know, what I mean, that's a mad place.
Well,
Um,
the other thing is actually the Bay Area is very cold, relatively speaking, to
Absolutely.
San Diego. And so, like when you I lived in San Francisco for a while, and it's literally fog city. It's like
Yeah.
cold and foggy, and it's a freezing place. Like, and so I just like the warm weather. And when I was in the Bay Area, I started getting this seasonal affective disorder where you basically like
Yeah.
vitamin D levels are dropping. You're not getting enough sun. And I just like being down here. So, and
Look,
I got, pre-COVID, I was in the Bay Area like once a week anyway, just flying up, get all my meetings packed in a day or two, and get out. And so, works for me.
excellent. Well, listen, I'll see you down Ocean Beach and Mission Beach. We'll go surfing next year. How about that?
Sounds like a plan.
So, apart from where we are and what we are, and where we want to live, please tell us about Civic. I mean, I think most of my audience will be aware of with what you're doing, but it would be great to hear it quite literally from the horse's mouth. Tell us more about
Yes.
it.
So Civic started off as, and really to its core still is an identity platform, identity technology company. So we decided to figure out how to build technologies around digital identity that would change and improve the world, that would enable things like voting remotely, and just about any use case that require you to pull out your driver's license out of your wallet or your
Yeah,
passport. we always felt that there was a digital way of doing it.
Yeah.
So we've been through a number of iterations, and we're actually on our second version of our product right now, which just launched 6 weeks ago.
And what's your audience? So is your audience based in, or your customers, are they based in South Africa or
it's global. It's global.
Yeah.
So we use it's a global product. We really focus on that. So we basically do electronic KYC and identification and ID verification, and then we make those credentials available in the wallet for you to use elsewhere.
Right. Okay.
So if you think about the different applications, you can create a crypto wallet in our platform, which allows you to be identified, and you can use those verified credentials to do things, to send money. There's new laws coming into place, FATF, etc., that requires crypto transactions to have identity attached to it. So that's possible now in our wallet. We've also been acutely focusing on the COVID-19 crisis.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, we think, and this is kind of where you have to kind of guess the future. We think that when there's a vaccine available, there won't be one vaccine. There'll be 5 or 10 or 15, and each country will have a certain number that they certify is available and usable in that country. And then when you're doing cross-border travel, you need to be able to prove that you had the vaccine. You may have to prove it that you had it in another country, but it has to be tied to your identity as you move across borders. So we're looking at how do you take medical records and move the medical records onto your device? How do you attach it to your identity? And how do you use it securely and privately? Because a lot of the global privacy laws that have emerged means that most governments can't really take your identity data, and companies definitely can't take them and store them. And so it depends on whether you're an EU citizen or US citizen. There's just a lot of sensitivity around storing data. But there's no sensitivity at all from any government around users storing their own data. So we've really built a system which empowers users to store their own data and their own identity information, their own medical records, etc., and then use it. And you can use it by using a set of proofs, so zero knowledge proofs. So you can say, hey, I've had this vaccine, and when you're going through a turnstile or some sort of automated booth or kiosk, it can verify that that is you in terms of identity, and therefore, and you've had this vaccine, so you're eligible to enter this building or this theater or this country or this train or plane or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at what are the ways that we can use digital identity plus medical records as you travel and move around freely in the world.
Well, I think if you envision a future with different vaccines for different people, or different healths, or different like everything is fragmented, right? Nothing is one TV channel, 4 TV channels, 1,000 TV channels. It always fragments.
Yeah.
And so I understand that would be a pretty good. I kind of agree with you, right? There probably will be different vaccinations, but presumably there'll be different verification platforms, and there's different airlines, and there's different countries that you're going to. Shit, I'm so sorry.
All right.
So sorry, and that's never happened. Wait. Sorry about that. I just broke my phone as well. That's never happened. That's really stupid of me. Anyway, so different phones, different telecoms. So you have a situation where you have all of this fragmented airlines, fragmented countries, and while all of that sounds great, it seems to me that that'd be a lot more complicated than you or I could even possibly envisage. How far are you along that track, or is this just vaporware and you're just starting it off, or have you got any kind of concrete, anything in place?
So the good news is we've actually built a lot of this infrastructure over the past couple of years, pre-COVID. We didn't expect COVID to hit this year, but it's one of the great applications of our platform. So we built identity.com, which is effectively a marketplace for information exchange between providers and users, essentially.
Wow.
So we can plug in any medical provider into identity.com, and we can pipe that data straight to your device on the Civic app. We can also have multiple apps. So you can have airlines having their own app, governments having their own apps, etc., plugged into the same network, and effectively it's just a conduit to allow data to be securely placed on the user's device. So we agree with the idea of fragmentation. They're going to be maybe dozens of, there already are identity providers, and the real question is, how do you make it easy for identity suppliers, the suppliers of the identity information, the verification, as well as the medical records to pipe it to whatever app needs to be used on the user's device?
Yeah.
And so we built the plumbing, it works, it's live. We've built the apps, that's live as well. And now we just need the vaccine for this ready to take off.
Yeah.
And I think everyone wants a vaccine more
Well,
than us, probably.
it's kind of almost plug and play type of thing. You know, as soon as, I mean,
It's data. It's data. Whether it's a vaccine data or whatever, it's data, and we just basically we built the plumbing around it. So right now we have our wallet, which is got $1 million. It has $1 million insurance. It's got $1 million protection guarantee on your funds. So when you put whatever crypto funds you have in your wallet, it's it's basically guaranteed to be recovered. And there's an insurance policy through Lloyd's of London, which in conjunction with CoinCover, who's working with us to make sure these wallets have the protection guarantee on them. It's interesting because now we can protect your funds. If we know who you are, we can protect your crypto keys. So you can't lose your keys, you can't lose your device. Yeah. The coin's always there. So people are downloading the Civic wallet today to be able to store their crypto in the wallet and know that it's protected. But then we can also protect other bits of information for them. And that's part of what we're doing.
Well, I say this on every show because one way I will get my money back. I was hijacked of 163 Ether about 20 months ago.
Wow.
So I know all about that. And now that the Ether price is going up, that was a 25k loss is now becoming a 70k loss. Do you know what I mean? So I always mention it on the podcast. Binance, you know where I am. Give me my money back. Thank you very much. So tell us more. I mean, Civic sounds like almost like an NGO. So you're not non-profit. You're definitely seriously, a profitable company that's also got kind of, some very, very noble intentions when it comes to COVID. You are a profitable company. Well,
we're a startup. So we're in the let's build the infrastructure phase and let's release the platform and let's get people to use it phase as a startup. So I mean, most startups are never profitable for years.
No, quite. So when did you start off? When did this begin?
The company started in earnest in about late 2015, early 2016. So we're about 4 years into it, and I think COVID's been a really interesting challenge for everyone, including us, for lots of reasons. But it's not the path we expected to take. A year ago, if you had asked me, how do you think this gets to market faster? I probably said, look, crypto needs to go through another surge and people need to get into crypto and you'll have more crypto wallets. And now the thinking slowly changed. I think the world doesn't care about crypto as much as it does care about, being able to move freely again. Yeah. And so, the world's energy is trapped right now. You can't go where you want to go. You can't travel. You can't get planes. Like everyone's freaked out. Passenger levels are 95% down. And so, the reality is, quite frankly, until we have a vaccine, the world's in stasis. Yeah, there's very little we can do, and so no one cares about much except how do we get a vaccine here as quickly as possible. And then no one wants to go for 15 vaccines, so you want to be able to prove that you've had the vaccine when you go from point to point. Yeah. And so we think that digital identity plays an important role in the transformation of the world as we view people moving around the world and understanding the behavior patterns and but being very, very sensitive to privacy, because I think we don't want a world where everyone's tracking everyone and you have no privacy and you're sharing your medical records wherever you go.
Yeah, I think it might be a bit too late for that, mate, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? I think people have given up.
Possibly, but we built the system so we don't store the data. So
No, listen, I mean, I think, I think we've all given up privacy for health. If there's a choice, I think that might have already happened. But hopefully there'll be a brighter future. Okay, so we have to mention Shark Tank. Tell us when you got involved in that. For British viewers who don't understand, Shark Tank is like Dragon's Den.
I did Dragon's Den as well.
No, did you?
Yeah. So in South Africa, I did Dragon's Den in I think it's 2014.
Okay.
Shark Tank in 2016, and so South Africa has actually had the benefit of airing both those shows. Wow. I've been a Dragon and a Shark, and I was on Undercover Angel as well, which aired I did that. I filmed that in the UK.
Is that when you give someone some money?
Yeah, you can help some non-profits or some charities or schools or whatever else, and I did a whole show on that as well. So
how was the experience? Did you like it, or was it?
Yeah, it was great. I went down to St. Leonard's on Sea.
These things. Do you know how far that is from where I live? That's about 12 miles. and about 2 miles from where my sister lives.
Oh, that's funny. Okay,
That's
so I
because
went down there.
St Leonard's is near Hastings, where the Battle of Hastings was in 1066,
Yep,
and it has probably more heroin addicts per head than anywhere else in the UK. It's very,
that was
very
my experience when I went there. It was just a lot of poverty, a lot of drug use, pretty bad. And the whole, I mean, we filmed the whole episode down there. It was great. It was a great experience to see how, even in a first world country like England, how some of the parts of it are just badly affected, and people,
I think
we have this global crisis. The Gini coefficient is real. There's this huge disparity between haves and have-nots, and to some extent, COVID is flattening the way the world migrates to cities, right? Because like this is what's happened. Like all the wealth concentrations moved into large cities, and people move there and for better jobs and opportunities. And now, if you look at the way we're doing this call using Zoom, location matters less,
yeah.
which I think may be a good thing for the world. I think we may get to the point where if people can spread out a bit more, living in major cities like New York, where COVID hits and everyone gets affected, probably not a good thing. I think we're overpopulating certain places, and if people didn't have to move to those cities in order to get, to work, etc., the wealth disparity may be better where you have people working in, staying in their hometowns and being able to work remotely and keeping that money in their cities, because the money flows out. What happens is the young population goes and studies, and then they move out, and then they go and spend their rent money in a big city, and they spend their food money, etc., in that big city. And there's good reasons, you can enjoy it as well. But the other reasons where people may say, I choose a different lifestyle, and I can earn money, and that money stays in the local towns. Like I'm from a small town, and
Yeah, no, absolutely.
it's the cycle of life. You go to high school, you leave for university, you don't come back, and then the schools are great.
Well, I live in the country. I live in a country where everyone goes to London. You know what I mean? And
So
everyone has their London time, and I agree. I mean, I love living in London.
Yeah.
I moved out probably down to the coast about 24 years ago, and I've been working from home for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I know how it works. I lived in India for 2 years, 2010 to 12, working from internet cafes with clients. So if you can do it there, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah,
no, I agree.
Some people may opt not to move, and some people opt to stay at home and stay in their hometowns and close to their family. And I think that's the other thing. Like better familial structures will form where people aren't because families break up right now. Kids go to school, parents get divorced, etc. And the fabric of society changes dramatically when you have this pull to the big cities.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to see what the long-term effects of video conferencing and remote working is for the world, and whether we can sort of flatten the sort of abnormalities where you have extreme wealth concentration in cities and poverty in small towns. And that's what I observed when I went to Hastings.
No, absolutely. I think the reason you live in London or somewhere like that is to go out,
Mm-hmm.
to see art, to see opera, and to see theatre, and go to the coffee shop and get drunk. And the excitement of London is fantastic. As much as Joburg, well, maybe San Diego's all right, but it's not London, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, why would you want to go back to an office, your flat in Canary Wharf at the moment, if you're living with your family in Gloucestershire and milking the cows? You know what I mean?
yeah.
So you're absolutely right. Okay, so that kind of segues nicely into, if you've been invited to be on a show judging entrepreneurs, then you must have been an entrepreneur yourself. So how did you make your dough? What did you do? I'll just go off screen for a second, but I'll be listening.
I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for my whole life. Since I was about 6 years old. But I think I've had lots of different successes and different scales. I started my first company in South Africa in 2003. Made a whole bunch of money, won some awards, etc. Sold that in 2008. Started another company, moved to the Bay Area with it. Left that company without selling it actually in 2011, and started a new company, Gift, and I sold that to First Data in 2014. And so that was 2 years. We raised $5 million, and we sold it for over 50. So it was a great return in 2 years. And then I started Civic afterwards. But I've also been an angel investor for many years. I've had some really good, successful investments. I've had, anywhere from, I'd say, my biggest return has been like 60 something times return on investment, and I've had
6
years. Yeah, I've had some really good investment wins. Obviously, going to Bitcoin early as well, back in 2000, like late 2012, late 2013. And so crypto has been good for me. Just startup investing in general has been good for me. So I've been fortunate that I've had the ability to have a set of diversified wins. But I've had downs as well. I've had misses. I mean, every investor makes mistakes, and that's part of the cycle. So
say you were on Shark Tank or Dragon's Den now,
yeah,
and Satoshi came on board, with this idea of Bitcoin.
Which one? Which one?
Well, yeah. So I think I might have met him in a weird way. But imagine now someone came onto the show. You were an entrepreneur. You knew your crypto, obviously, and they came up, something DeFi or something smart, something that you knew was smart, and they presented to your fellow judges or dragons who didn't really know crypto, and you thought, this guy's pretty smart. This girl's pretty smart. How would you kind of convince how would you play it with your fellow judges to say, you don't know what you're talking about, this is going to be the new thing, I got into crypto 5 years ago? How would you kind of explain it?
That actually happened to me, where I actually did a crypto investment. I did the first ever Bitcoin investment on Shark Tank, in any of the Shark Tank.
Did you? Oh, no way. And now I want to hear this.
Yeah. So it was, ultimately the company failed, but they were trying to build non-fungible tokens and create characters for a game. And back then they used colored coins before ERC20 was a thing. So a bit too early. And obviously, like, the problem with building games is it's just hard. Digital games are hard.
Well, yeah.
This tough industry.
So how did you convince? How did the conversation go with the judges? They just thought you were.
Well, the one judge, Gil, is a friend of mine, and I met him that week on the show, but he's become a very good friend of mine. And he was just like, you know what? If Vinny's in, I'm in.
So he did come. He came in as well, and you lost his money.
Yeah, he came in as well. Yeah.
I'd love to be in a bar with you two talking about that one. But it sounds if you've got 60x kind of successes, it doesn't really matter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what you look for there's lots of lessons learned with investing. Investing, I would say, is take about 20% of your cash as 20% of your assets, or cash. I always say cash, because I think like liquid assets is a good thing.
Yeah.
So take 20% of your liquid assets, and then go and divide it up by about 20 or 30 bets, and then go place those bets on companies. So let's say you've got $1 million in net worth, and you take 20%, and you say, okay, I can write 20 $10,000 checks. Go and do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't try and go write 200K checks.
Mm-hmm.
And in writing the 20 $10,000 checks, what you'll find is, if you can pick well and you just get one company that does, 20x, you pay up your whole portfolio, and the rest is cream.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the strategy with angel investing. And then once you've done that, then you can go into bigger checks and fewer investments. And so, but because there's a whole bunch of learning that happens when you do more investments, and it's tedious and expensive to do lots of bigger investments, obviously. But over time, like, I've moved away from doing the smaller checks now, because now I've built some sort of pattern recognition, what I look for, what I think is important, and now I'm able to do bigger, fewer bets with more conviction. But I think when you're starting off, you need to do more bets just to get a feel for it.
Yeah. No, well, I think I've come about it in a slightly different way. Is that there's always been too much month left at the end of the money when it comes to my life. You know what I mean? I've always spent too much. You know what I mean? It's probably still probably will it always be like that. But I've kind of taken points in companies because I've been there as a kind of advisor. So that's been my investment. That's been my, not 60x, but 2 or 3x here and there. And then moving into that kind of making the 25K investment. Now, but that's great advice for me personally. I think that's great advice for everybody listening. You've still got it, mate. You've still got it, Vince. You know what I mean? Why didn't you move into crypto earlier? You're not like a veteran. You're kind of like, not an early adopter, a lunchtime adopter, like my good self.
Well, I had a problem which crypto solved for me. When I was running GIF, we tried to figure out how do we create a system where people can make non-reputable payments to us. So one of the issues we had was chargebacks on credit cards are high in the digital space, and we couldn't trust easily giving people their gift cards until we vetted a transaction. But with Bitcoin at the time, it was just really easy. Like, we would give them the card in seconds because we know that the coins are secure in our wallet. It very little to no risk of accepting those transactions. So it solved the problem for us. We used it and did well, and it was like, this is the future of money. And things have changed since then. Bitcoin, you can't just accept a transaction in 1 second anymore.
Yeah.
It's for lots of reasons, but back in those days, that was pretty compelling for a merchant online.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned COVID and you mentioned the stasis. But is this really a period of stasis? I mean, I could easily ask you a question. So what position is Civic in as you expected it to be? And you could easily say that, well, we're in a position of stasis and, things have stopped and we're focusing, or I hate the word, but pivoting. But are we actually in a period of stasis when it comes to crypto? Are we not seeing the kind of maybe a more measured, maybe a more mature approach to the kind of evolution of the business? Do you know what I mean? Because that's what, I'm an ex-tech journalist. I used to write column for Forbes, The Telegraph. I still write for The Economist and the BBC. So I still get a huge amount of press releases in my inbox, you know what I mean? But I don't think I've seen anything as profound as the last 6 months when it comes to crypto. The way that people are changing, moving, the way the industry is really growing up from a kind of perception of scammers and speculators into being, as you said, the future of money or the future of currency. Do you feel the same kind of progression, or do you actually think we are in stasis?
I think what it's doing is it's forcing a fundamental shift in the way we do things.
Yeah.
And the stasis itself is at a macro level, but at a micro level, parts are just moving around very, very quickly and reorganizing itself. Yeah. And so, and I think it's probably a good thing overall. Obviously the debts aren't, but from an economic perspective, I think we're in a good space where, things are going more digital. We're getting more, smart about just general healthcare and cleanliness, and people are washing their hands all the time, and the flu is going down because it's not spreading as much because people are not going to work in these big buildings with thousands of people and spreading it. And so there's lots of positives to COVID. I don't think COVID is a negative thing, universally. I think the casualties and the death is, but it's forcing us to take a step back and reconsider the way we structure our lives and the way we do things. And this may be an unpopular opinion, but you know what? Unfortunately, it's causing a lot of poverty, a lot of negative effects for the entire world, and we appreciate that. But if you take a long-term view, it may prove to be something which is more beneficial to us in the long term as a species.
Yeah.
In the short term, and it's forcing us to reconsider the way we do everything.
Yeah.
It's also, I think, it's tough for working parents. It's tough for people who have kids in school, and my heart goes out to everyone. Even I'm suffering, in a sense. I have a lot more limitations in terms of my movement. I can't, basically stuck at home all the time. Hardly go out much. But it gives me time for introspection. It gives me time for thinking about things. I've had COVID paranoia where I'm like, oh my goodness, I got COVID, go and get tested. It's mentally, it's actually straining. It's straining for everyone. I don't think it's...
It would have been. I was talking to a friend of mine. I was talking about when we got locked down in the UK. I said I filled up the car with petrol. I filled up 2 tanks of petrol. I asked a mate of mine where I could get guns. Obviously, you can't get guns very easily in this country. And I took out quite a large amount of cash. And I told this to a mate of mine. Said, God, I was just paranoid. He goes, oh no, man, I'm a prepper. I said, what do you mean? He goes, oh, for the last 15 years at conferences, I've got Israeli bandages in my bag. I think there's a lot of men out there that are just as paranoid as you are, man. Do you know what I mean? I think we're all a bit.
Yeah. No, I bought 2 freezers. I stocked them up. I had so I get it. And this is not a great time for the world. But can it force us to change the way we do things and think about things? Can we move to digital faster?
Yeah.
Can we improve productivity? Can we improve the economies? Can we help? Does this give us the tools to cure more diseases? Is more money going into healthcare and research that can help us fight other diseases? And it's one of those things where I just think that it's not an entirely negative thing. I think we have to look at the bright side, and maybe it's just me trying to be positive because I tend to be a positive optimist, right? Most entrepreneurs are. Let's look at the bright side. Let's look at how we're changing the world. Let's look at how many families are getting more time with their kids that they previously didn't. How many people are working from home, and hopefully we have raised a better generation. It's hard for a lot of people, but it's hard for everyone, I guess, in some extent. But if we just focus on the negative side of COVID,
No, absolutely. No,
we're
no.
going to drive ourselves crazy.
Yeah, I think there's. I think obviously you're a man that makes a man feel clear. And when you were saying that, I was thinking quite clearly. I thought that maybe the first thing that COVID did to us was made us think about our physical health, to get fit, not to sit and watch Netflix go running when we have the chance. Then the narrative has moved a little bit to mental health and how people have handled themselves over the last 4 or 5 months, right? Because that's certainly something that I've, family and all that stuff, where I've found myself really claustrophobic. I found myself speaking to men, women they're much better at this than we are, opening up, saying, yes, I've had a hard time as well. But I was just thinking when you were talking then that maybe you could, if you're talking about improvement, this might also move into financial health. So from physical to mental to financial health, is that actually this wallet every week used to have about 100 receipts in it, right? Now it's got nothing in it at all because I'm not spending anything. And financial health, it's like, what did I spend? Why did I spend $8 on that coffee and that cake? Or croissant, do you know what I mean? And it's definitely improved my spending, and it's changed. And since the pubs have been open in this country, obviously, we are built on pubs. I'm much smarter with the way that I use my money. These sunglasses here, instead of £150 Ray-Bans, I'd lose within 3 months £7, and I can feel myself kind of becoming clearer about the way that I spend money. And I've never been a greedy person. I've got an old motorbike and an old car for the family. Do you know what I mean? So maybe a lot of people are learning how to live within their means. Maybe this is a sign of financial health. But I would go back. Sorry to tell you about my life story. I would go back to the financial health of me losing my crypto money at that time, and the fact that you can insure up to wallets up to $1 million. Now, I would have thought that crypto insurance was quite difficult to secure. How have you managed to do that, or am I just out of the loop?
In what respect?
Well, it's easy enough to get insurance to cover you on that type of amount.
Well, I think it's we're definitely the first company to get it for consumers.
Yeah.
So we worked with CoinCover to get that done, and so we're the first company to get a mass sort of blanket policy. I mean, obviously corporates have had this for a while. Bitco, who we partner with, has for large corporates and recovery insurance. The difficulty that exists in the industry is that people don't appreciate how difficult it is to store keys and how they can be hacked and accessed, etc.
Yeah.
So we had to build a really rock solid type security around our wallet to store these keys and make the underwriters very comfortable with what we're doing and work with CoinCover very closely on this. So it hasn't been an easy process because the bar is so high. But once it's in place and they can trust that our technology is superior. I mean, effectively the Civic wallet replaces a hardware wallet.
Yeah.
I mean, the things you can do with it is, as long as you have your identity tied to your wallet and you can prove that you are who you say you are, you can will the funds to your future generations and say, and if anything happens to you and your phone, those funds can be recovered.
Was that process as difficult as trying to talk to your dragon dens about your fellow judges about crypto? Were insurers like?
You're comparing two different things. You're comparing a highly technical process with a more abstract process.
Fair enough. You're correct. Yeah. But do you think that maybe 18 months ago, if you'd spoken to an insurer, then they would have been different? That the insurers have caught up with the technology and caught up with you?
I don't think it's about that. I think it's in the past 18 months, there's been more of a acceptance of crypto. The Office of the Comptroller in the US has said now that crypto is effectively legal for banks to store in custody, etc.
Yeah.
So the laws have changed and made it a lot easier to regard crypto as a reasonable substitute for money. Whereas back in 2013 when we added crypto to our platform and Bitcoin to our platform, I had investors saying this stuff's illegal, it's used for drugs and all these other things, and it's you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, it's a bad idea. And fast forward 7-8 years, it's a different game, right? So I think crypto's rewarded the early adopters for the large part.
Yeah. I think it was also the Twitter crypto hack. I think maybe if that had been a year ago, that would have been a Bitcoin bad story, right? It would have been illegal. This time the story was slightly different. It was hackers hacked Twitter and celebrities, and it didn't really matter if it was Bitcoin. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't a bit.
Yeah.
It wasn't really.
I think people have gotten past the idea when a company or exchange gets hacked that it's any different from, a bank getting robbed.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Just because a bank gets robbed doesn't mean the money's bad.
No. Listen, I think we've all been saying that for years. We're coming to the end, Vince. I'm a bit, I'm a bit sad about that. I'm enjoying this conversation. It could go anywhere. We kind of tend to do this towards the end, and I know it's all a bit kind of stupid, and it's more like bullshit than Blockspeak. But any ideas on the price of Bitcoin? Do you think we're on a bull run? End of this year?
I won't make a prediction, but what we'll say is 12,000 is the magic number. So if Bitcoin can break through 12,000, hold 12,000, we're going to see a run to probably 50,000 plus, in my opinion. Because what happens is
why 12? Just because of the graphs?
Yeah, just because the charts and the history around Bitcoin, and just my gut instinct says that 12,000 is the magic number, and we have to break through there, and we have to hold it for maybe a week or two or whatever it is, and then consolidate. Because once it starts going to above there, once we start seeing 13, 14, 15,000 in 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, you might as well just go all in at that point, because it's going to eventually hit 20,000. It'll hit a wall 20,000, and it may go up and down at that point. But once it breaks 20,000, it's just all the way up to like 50 plus.
It's funny in the way that kind of, trillions of dollars are being put into the US economy. Everyone's saying, what is a Bitcoin worth compared to a dollar? It might become the other way around. You know what I mean? It's like, what's the dollar worth compared to?
It's likely we'll go through another bubble and then it bursts. So we'll go up to 50,000, maybe 100,000, maybe 150, and then it'll come all the way back down to like 30 or so, 40. But it'll be higher than 20, I'm pretty sure.
Well, hopefully within that time, people will become smarter about crypto. We'll be using products such as Civic to look after their money, to get into borders, to get onto planes, to get into do things. Absolute pleasure, Vince Lingham. I don't usually do this on stage either. I have a glass of rum here and I hate rum. Shall I tell you why? Because my football team is playing a match tonight for £160 million. And we've been in the lower divisions for 76 years. But if we win this evening, then we go into the Premier League. So this is to Brentford FC. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you very much. That's all I need. I need your love. Vince Lingham, fascinating guy. Some amazing investment advice there, especially if you're an angel. Based in San Diego, a lot of time in South Africa, doing some great stuff with Civic. It's good night from me. It's good night from Vince. And have a wonderful day. If you find me in Argentina tomorrow without any hair, that's because Brentford have got to the Premier League. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Cheers.